Hey, you know what? This is such a cool thing. I am trying something different. I'm trying something different with my friends, Christy and Quentin. And let me just tell you this, it's different because we're live and I haven't done that in a very long time. So welcome. I hope everybody who's jumping in from Christy's pages and Q's pages and my pages has the time to sit and listen in the background. And if not, come back later because it's going to be important. I want to welcome you to It's Your Business, brought to you by the Bold Business Podcast. This is a program where you can go to, you can get the source and resources that you need to navigate today's ever-changing business landscape. I'm your host, Jess Duell, and on each program, we get real, really real, about current business challenges and triumphs. Let's get ready together to lead with depth, understanding, and achievement. All right, I have to tell you this right now. Today, we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about we can't work any harder. So now what? I mean, we've all been there. We may be there right now. And with that in mind, I asked Christy and Q to come with something. Come with something that we could share. So you'll go away with three things. And the three areas that we're going to dive in today to help deepen your understanding, increase your achievement, and feel just a little more confident to deal with whatever today brings you include growth strategy, a deep understanding of that growth strategy, the tools to reduce the burden of doing work, and how to decide and find your true north that you're checking in with every day. Why? Because it's your business and you can't always work harder. And we're here to talk about the so now what. Okay, I got to tell you, let's do. Welcome, Christy. Welcome, Q. We've got to introduce ourselves to everybody. So we should probably just start right there.
Sounds good. I beat you to the punch, Q. So I'm Christy Maxfield, President and CEO of Purpose First Advisors, and we help you build, grow, and exit your business on purpose. So we work with great people like Quentin and Jess and other colleagues to make that happen because entrepreneurship and business ownership is a team sport. And we love talking about the real. That's generally how we roll. So
yeah,
that's me.
That's Christy. I'm Quentin Ortega, founder, lead consultant of QCO Consulting. Similar work. I've been working and helping companies figure out growth strategy and kind of create their 10-step plan towards growth since about 2008 with various companies over the years. And always excited to meet new founders, meet new executive teams, dive in and work with them on kind of helping them break down the barriers that they're facing to help their company or their organization grow.
Well, that leaves me.
Follow up those two.
Come on, Jess.
How do I do this? See, I am in such great company today. And in fact, I love being in panel discussions and in groups where we're having these conversations to just learn. And here's the thing. I'm a business consultant and I specialize in strategic growth, specifically around what does it mean to have a strategic plan? How does it tie all the pieces together? Because we've got to look out 2, 5, 10 steps ahead to have that multi-year plan to thrive over time. And it's a grand experiment. What I've learned over the 24 years that I've been doing this is that it's a grand experiment. So Red Direction is really working with the founders, executives, boards to understand what the elements of the experiment are. Where do they want to try and grow, and understand that it is trial and error and that failure is part of it, but so is success. And the challenges that come with failure and success are often similar, even though we don't really want to look at them that way. So that's what we're doing in terms of increasing our capacity with which to look at things, see into the future so that we can act right now well. And I did sell my first business early. I did have a lot of other failures in between. I have had stunning failures in addition to great success. And all of that experience really comes down to the perspective that I bring. This concept of I will see things others miss, not only because I've been there, but because I'm willing to stop, step back, and ask a question to stir the pot. Let's just be real, to stir the pot and to be able to go forward and be curious and understand coming back to our big experiment. And that's what we're doing over at Red Direction. And I love to be here and learn with and from both of you today.
I
Thanks
love
for
it.
having us.
I want to say I love stunning failures as a term. I think I think that more people should celebrate stunning failures. I think that's a valuable
That
lesson.
Well,
deserves some
if you're gonna
confetti.
fail, do it stunningly.
Do it,
Yes.
do it big. If you're gonna go big.
See, that's
Oh,
right.
nice.
That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, I got both. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh man, I'm telling you what. Okay, so in these areas that we are looking at, in the three things that I talked about earlier, and I'm going to repeat them so everybody knows and we can keep track of this. Understanding deeply our growth strategy, choosing the tools that reduce our burden, and finding our true north that we're checking in with daily. That is what we're going to talk about. So starting with that high level, the growth strategy, understanding where we're going and what we're coming from, and what we have. I mean, actually, reality is when we understand exactly what we have much better opportunity to be innovative and creative. And so to understand a growth strategy deeply, it really means that we know the direction our company will go. Regardless of what's going on around us, we know where we're going. And then the way that we as a company identify to do that, then we go out and how do we stay market relevant? How do we understand to continue to be of service? And we as a company are defining and ensuring our success because we'll be around in the future. And sometimes our baseline is we want to be around in the future. And then from there, we can understand what does achievement look like. And we forget that. And that's really what a growth strategy truly entails if you were to just put it in a little box.
I love a little box. You know, I love our framework.
I agree. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
a good framework.
And I love the idea of like keeping in mind that that you need to keep looking at where the future goal is right now, right? Like Christy and I have worked with clients who are, looking at an exit, right? Which creates a very different day to day than if your goal, like you said, is to just be around in the future, right? Like that's a big piece of it.
And being around in the future may mean orchestrating your exit so that the company exists with or without you.
That's it. That's right.
Because there's lots of ways to exit, including closing the door and shutting out the lights, right? So if we're building something that, if, as you said, our clients really value and we're of service to them, ostensibly, we want to be of service to them regardless of whether or not we're at the helm. I often tell clients going west is a nice direction, but I can end up in San Francisco or San Diego. Those are two very different locations. How I choose to get there, when I know I'm in the right place, that specificity matters, and that knowing where you're going, even though many things are going to change between point A and point B, is incredibly grounding, and it gives you a decision-making matrix. You can start to say yes or no. Am I going to stop in Boise? How far off my path is that going to take me? Is it worth it? My husband's the king of the side trip. I'm not. I like the shortest distance between A and B.
He sees the signs on the side of the road and he's like, we're going to the ball of yarn. That's the
ball of yarn. And he seeks them out. Right?
Oh, yeah.
All the things you can't get to from here, he's on it.
Well, I think between you and the West Coast, you could see the Stonehenge made out of cars. You could see the biggest ball of twine. You could stop by the city that is dedicated to the Wizard of Oz. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
all these things.
Yeah. And if I get to the right place when I'm west, okay.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I agree with all of that. And I would add that when we understand what our growth strategy is, it allows us to know what work is important. And I think first and foremost, we all are looking out and seeing, well, what else is going on? What else could we try? How could we improve? And sometimes that actually is disguised as big distraction that takes us off track, and we may not realize we're off track. And so understanding what our growth strategy is a way to have that feedback loop of going, oop, maybe I went too far. Oop, we've stayed at this stop a little too long. Oh, we probably might want to consider changing direction. And regardless of what everybody else is doing, we have our own work because we have our own unique selling proposition, because we have our own unique goals, because we have our own unique ways that we want to solve a problem and be of service ultimately to others. And to have it be of service and be valuable, that there is an exchange of time, energy, and money with us in our work. And that's really, I think, the first part of what a growth strategy allows from my perspective.
And going back to the idea that I can't work any harder, really going and knowing deeply where you're going means that you will be able to take some things off your list. And
Yeah.
you have to be willing to do that. Like, you have to be willing to make the choice and live with the trade-offs, because you can't do it all.
Yeah, a lot of the companies that I work with, I joke with them that they have the shiny key syndrome, right? Like they see something shiny and they kind of chase after it. And like the interesting thing is like that mentality is actually part of the requirement to be a good business leader, right? Like you do actually have to pay attention to the things that might be opportunities and look for those. But I think using that growth strategy, always referencing back and checking and saying, hey, is this in line with where I'm going, can kind of keep you more focused and not just all over the place, right? Focus is key.
Now, okay, so I was reading this thing the other day, and this might and I don't remember the context. All I remember is Q, that now that you said this, discipline might not get you there. What's your reaction in relationship to what we're talking about right now about that?
But consistency will. So like discipline is this idea that like, I will do it 110% every single time. And if I can keep doing the same thing, regardless of how much effort I can put towards it, if I can keep the ball moving, I think it will get you there. And you don't always have to be the one doing it either, so long as you're the one making sure it gets done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, it's the same as I often reference other things outside of business, right? To do this. And it's the same as like when somebody's trying to start working out, right? Like if you're not somebody that works out a lot, like you just need to do one sit up a day, right? Or 5 sit-ups a day, whatever it is that doesn't turn you off from doing it, so that you come back the next day and keep doing it until you build that habit, right? And I think that building successful growth strategies is similar to some extent, right? You need to start small, start with what like doesn't scare you away from some of the change, and slowly kind of increase the reps as you build the habit. And in doing so, you create longer term impact. But everybody wants to see impact right away, because that's another business owner trait. And so you have to be able to like know that future gratification, that future impact is happening, even if you can't always feel it today.
Yeah, that's that grass is always greener piece. And that's one of the things too. It's one of the reasons why I like doing the work that I do, in terms of everything is a grand experiment and we don't know where the stunning will be or where it will come. And what I've learned over the years, not only directly, but also in working with companies that are at these growth plateaus and they're working to break through, it really does come down to how can I embrace what the stunning is, and maybe everything is actually as it needs to be, as it should be, as is necessary to do the right work. And I have the wrong mindset, and I have the wrong expectation, and I have been attached to the different thing. And that's where groups of people, right? I'm so excited to be here learning with each of you. This is my favorite topic. I could talk nonstop about this from now all the way back. For the amount of seconds that I have been alive in this world, I could just talk about this going forward that many more seconds. And I know that's an interesting thing to think about in relationship to, Christy, you said this, and Q, you said this too. Both of you had a variation of this, and that is, when we know what the right work is, we know that how we might want to do we know we have to do as much of work as possible. So what does that mean? And how do we do it when we can't always work harder, when we're at capacity, even when we've taken the time to create more time, which is possible. I've done it. I do it every day, actually, make more time. There still is this element of, well, there's only so much effort to go in. And that takes us into that takes us into this other part. And I know we're going to get into that in just a few minutes in regards to where we're going next. But I do want to think about that in, I'm just curious, how do each of you prioritize, right? If we know we've got all this necessary work to do, and we know that we've got to do all of the right work, how do we determine what is the right work in relationship to our growth strategy?
Q.
Yeah,
Go
I mean, I
for it.
think that over the years, I think you can't work harder is a lesson that was hard learned by me, right? So I grew up like, and I know Christy kind of grew up this way too, being told like, just work harder. Like that's the answer that a lot of us are given as we grow up. Like, oh, if it's not working, like just put more hours towards it. And personally, I hit a wall at one point, right? I hit a personal wall where I was like, I'm working.
Yeah.
I like woke up one day stressed out to the max. Like I had a bunch of different businesses going at the time. I was doing consulting as well. And I was like, there is no more work harder, right? Like you hit that, I think everybody eventually hits that wall if they've been working in business for long enough, right? And then they're like, well, now what? Like, because it rocks everything you've been told your whole life for a lot of people to say like, okay, well now what do we do if the thing that I was always told solved the problem doesn't solve the problem, right? And then, so I think that then you turn, you look back and you look at other processes and tools, that you've learned in the past where you say like, how have I optimized other things, right? And apply that. And then the kind of the build, learn, grow like cycle, or, there's a bunch of different versions of it, however you want to do that. I mean, I think for me, I just tried to start applying that in it as fast as I could, right? How many cycles of build, learn, grow can I go through with my personal task to try to suss out what is actually the right thing? And I think I still do that today.
I'm very much a fan of trying to do the things in a way that capitalizes on how much energy or enthusiasm I have. So like, I'm neither a morning person nor a night person. I'm really good between like 9 and 3. So if I know I'm going to have to really bring a lot of creative thinking to something, if I'm going to have to sit and write, if I'm going to have to diagram, if I'm going to have to do things that require an extended level of attention, I'm literally going to try and design my day that way and structure my work to take advantage of that, right? So that when I'm in that learn, do, repeat cycle, I can hopefully be doing it when I have the most to give. And then forgiving myself for actually needing to take a break. I mean, I very much was the keep your head down, hold your breath, keep going till the end, and then you can take a break kind of person. And now really respecting the idea that I need to take breaks along the way and I actually get more done than if I simply muscle through it, because muscling through it is giving me diminishing returns at an exponential rate. It's not just I'm a little bit less good at it, I'm a lot less good at it. I also think of something you said, Jess, with regard to this idea that and where did my words go? I hate when my words leave me.
They're here. They've floated around. We'll break up the silence here just a minute, right?
Oh, okay. Excellent.
I'm telling you, I am too I move my hands way too much, so I might as well just work it right in. That's
well, I'll come back to the thing that you said that inspired me, because I was like, but one of the things is also recognizing that sometimes you think of things that need to be done and they actually don't make it to your to-do list because they're not that important. And maybe the thing I thought I wanted to say is just not that important because it didn't make it from my frontal lobe.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, one, I appreciate, Christy, you giving us part of your peak day here. Also, I want to say that now that I know
that
hours, you're right. Yeah. We're right in the middle of peak Christy hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely funnier in earlier in the day. I'm definitely more tolerant of BS earlier in the day. There's all sorts of things. I would also say that one of the things Quentin has done, and I've done it in my own way, is add people, which is the thing that teams or owners, I should say, are least likely to want to do because people cost money. right? I have a virtual assistant. Do I absolutely need a virtual assistant? Part of my choice to bring her on a couple of years ago was I had to get used to delegating things that truly were not the highest and best use of my time. And until I started to do that, I couldn't wait until there was so much of it that I was overwhelmed.
And was still necessary.
And was still necessary. Like
That's
scheduling all the meetings that came in, reading requests that came in at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I could have spent a week organizing my calendar. And thankfully Heidi helped me do that. But also we tap each other, right? We've brought in additional team members as we've needed them, because sometimes two brains are better than one.
Always. Hands down, always. Working in a silo never works, which is one of the reasons I ended up doing what I am doing. And I love every second of it because I get a chance to learn. I can be creative. And it's interesting how dialed in you are to your energy management, Christy. I also know mine for the most part, and every once in a while I get surprised. So I'm even breaking my own rules around that now and again. And that is actually what I would say about prioritization, thinking about this. I get so stuck in a routine that I forget that there's some potential drag there. And you both have mentioned you got to let go of the stuff that's not important or delegate at what's only necessary. Unless we know our growth strategy, unless we know the direction we want to go, unless we are clear with what we are offering, how we want to offer it, and the impact that we want to make, we actually can't do a good job of any of the other. We don't know what to say yes or no to. And the frameworks and the decision-making process and all of that actually ties into what this is. And I know it seems, of all the things we're going to talk about, seems the one that's the hardest to grasp or to go, here's my checklist, and then it's done at the end. Yeah. Think about what you did in college. If you went to college, think about the last class or certification that you took. Think about the last book you read that was inspiring to you. It doesn't have to be formal education. It can be any of those things. Anything that created an inspiration that made you double down on something you really care about, or you fully believe in, or you know is important. I bet you it's part of your growth strategy, not only in our work world, not only in the professional world, not only in the exchange of value and services, but also personally, because it lights us up. It gives us energy. It tells us, even when things are hard, it's not as bad as it's not bad. And there's a big difference that we forget. And holding up that mirror, it's hard for me. What makes it hard for me? It's hard for the company. What makes it hard for the company? Sometimes it's delegation. Sometimes it's tool selection. Sometimes it's we've got too much extra drag. And that moves us right into this second thing that I wanted that we teased, that when we can't work any harder, now what? And that is that we have tools available to us to reduce the burden. And those tools, just because our growth strategy could be very unique and should be and will be. Ooh, I did use the S word. I did use the S word. It will be unique to each one of us. That is something that then comes into the tool set as well. So I know, Christy, this is really big on your heart and mind right now in terms of we know when we can't work any harder, and you alluded to it in how you prioritize. Take it away.
Yeah, it does come down to tools. So I'm not an expert on what CRM you're supposed to use, or how best to time block your calendar, or which automation and drip sequence is going to get you the highest response, right? When we think of automation and tools, we often think of those things. But I think first and foremost for me, it's if I think, how do I actually work smarter and not harder? I have to reduce a load, right? I have to actually make it less strenuous, less burdensome. And I kind of go back to manual labor. And in manual labor, you're going to find a lever, a tool, a mechanism. You're going to use something so that another device takes more of the burden than you do alone. And that's, to me, what automation or using technology or leveraging systems, whether those are paper systems or not paper systems, having systems and processes, having ways of doing things, having common language with which to do them, and then introducing technology to make those even more powerful, more seamless, less burdensome, kind of, for me, is at the heart of smarter, right? I can add more people, I can add more processes, I can add more technology. I've got to make sure they're all aligned and working towards that strategic goal. And what you said too about the mirror, even when you hold up a mirror, you at best you can see one side of your body at a time. And generally speaking, if you're holding the mirror up to your business, you can only see the part that you're holding up the mirror to at any given time. And as consultants, our job is to reflect back to you on a regular basis, because you're going to call us and say, I've got this great opportunity. I'm not sure what to do next. I'm really excited about this. Why can't I get people to move off the dime on this? And we're going to go back to, this is what you said you wanted. How does this fit into the plan? Has your goal changed, or the way you want to approach that goal changed? And based on that conversation, what do you think you want to do? And I have had 1 hour conversations where we've gone from overwhelmed to, wow, that was a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be, because I didn't have any skin in the game to the answers to those questions. I could just pose those questions and also say, it's okay to have changed your mind, but I'm working off the playbook that says, this is where we're headed and this is how you want to get there. If something's fundamentally changed, I need you to tell me. And
Here's
that
what I
way
hear
we
you
can
saying.
do that.
I hear you saying slow down to speed up.
Absolutely. I mean, that the chaos that we all create in ourselves comes from this idea that I am already behind. I should have been doing it before. If I don't act right now, it'll be forever. If I don't perform exactly the way I need to perform in this meeting, all is lost. It was my bite at the apple, right? Like, we build up a lot of stories, and you alluded to that too, Jess, of like, what's holding me back? Is it me? Is it the way I'm doing it? Is the way I'm thinking about doing it? And I have a client right now. I've started to prepare the sheet of, these are the things I think you believe, then I'm not so sure they're working for you right now.
Interesting.
Can we actually re-examine some of these core beliefs? Because the evidence I'm seeing is that operating on the basis of these beliefs is not serving you right now.
Oh, it's the wrong equation, right? It's the wrong combination of things.
I just don't know how they're going to get different outcomes if they don't change that.
Mm-hmm.
We're always our own toughest
critic,
right? Right. We're always our own toughest critic. I think that's the phrase that I always fall back on. I mean, everybody has these high standards. I think when I think back again, to myself over the years, one of the stories I share with people is that you do set these expectations on yourself, right? And so for years, I lived in my email inbox, right? Like, and I, like, if somebody emailed me, within 24 hours, right, was my goal that I had set in my head, that I was getting back to them with like a meaningful response, not just like I saw this and move on. And then I took a week vacation where I like disconnected from email entirely, right? Like, so I didn't tell anyone I was going on vacation. I didn't set like expectations. I just took a week off, and I came back, and in that time of being away from email, I realized like, oh, I'm the only one that expected email to be that fast. Like the expectations I had that were stressing me out, right? Like on a pretty regular basis of like, I got to get back to everybody if they send me an email. Were all me, because realistically, if somebody had, a fire burning that needed more attention, they're going to call me, they're going to text me, they're going to Slack me, right? There are other channels that people are going to use, other tools, Christy, that people are going to use to escalate those messages. And it was a lesson for me of like, oh, I need to let go of this productivity expectation because no one else has it, right? Like now I still try to answer my emails in a reasonable amount of time, but but it definitely
not me. I'm actually email correspondence is my Achilles heel. Cute.
Good to know. See, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But it's an example of a tool too, right? Like,
well,
so emails, a tool we use every day. We don't even think of it as a tool. It's like a pencil for us, but setting an out of office message that sets expectations, even if it's, I have a higher workload than usual right now, I'm anticipating that it will take me 3 to 4 days to get back to you. If it's an emergency, please text me, right? 99.9% of the time, whoever you're interacting with simply wants to know what's going on. Did you get it? Did you get it? Yep, I got it.
Yep,
nope, you're not going to get an answer right now, right? So that's a tool. If you don't use some type of automated messaging system for when you need to preserve sacred time to work on your business, then that's one tool you could adopt today. Using folders, so that your inbox is not your perpetual filing cabinet, is a tool. It's a way, like, it's not what we think of as automation on a grand scale, but it's most certainly going to help you look at that inbox in a different way and feel differently about that, and consequently have more energy to devote to the important things versus, oh my God, I've got 10,000 unread emails, 99% of
Yeah.
which don't need to be in your inbox to begin with, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I think that what we don't need to overcomplicate tools either. And we don't have to overcomplicate
Love
automation and technology.
Agreed.
We do need to lean into using it in ways that actually benefit us.
Nothing stresses me more than those people that we all know. We all know have this friend or colleague who you see their phone like lying on the table and it says like 10 or 20,000 unread. There's the badge and the number. And I'm
Ugh.
like, I couldn't do it. Like that
No.
would, I'm like, that can't be
I
good for
turned
you.
it off.
Like have that.
I won't.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is I worked with a co-founder who would, his prime time, and I've told you mine is not this time, was like midnight to 3 a.m. Not Christy's not working. She's not thinking, she's not doing. But as I would go to bed, the thing would start to bing. The thing would start to bing. And it would give me stress and anxiety, even though I knew he wasn't expecting a response. So no, it doesn't bing when I have an email, because I am fully capable of opening this up and hitting that icon and seeing how many are in there. It doesn't, I've really minimized my notifications simply to be able to reduce the stressors that make me feel like I need to be working harder versus working smarter.
Well, what's really interesting is I think about this and I'm listening and I'm thinking, oh, you know what? This ties into our growth strategy and it ties into those highest priorities that we have. Because if we have an expectation of answering emails a certain way in a certain time frame, and when they come in for responsiveness, what is that actually taking away from? And is the way that we do our work here that makes us solid, that makes people want to come back, that makes us likable, is it taking away from that external experience because of what we think we should be doing? And I recognize that, yes, we can use tools to help. We can also accidentally erode what we're trying to do. And that's where this conversation that we're having and the tools and the ideas that we're sharing here work for each of us. So it's up to you now. It's up to you now to go, maybe I don't understand my growth strategy. I don't understand how I make money. I don't understand where my opportunities to actually grow this company are. I don't understand what I actually want to put in versus what I want to get out. These are all business levers that are incredibly important. And the tools that we choose are very important for that. One of the things that's important, I know, at Red Direction is that we all have life-work balance. So if something comes out of the woodwork, we all are sharing each other's workload. Hands down. When somebody's on vacation, we plan for it. We know they're going to be out. And any of you that emailed me over the last couple of weeks got an email that said, I'm out. And this is the short version. I'm out. Won't respond. When I get back, it'll be deleted. So if it's really important, email me after this.
Oh, you're one of the deletes when they come back people. I love that.
I am a by the way, it took me
built that muscle
43 years to do it.
I haven't done it yet, but I love the technique. Just so you know, like that's the.
And what was that? It was because if I'm not, as the torchbearer, as the person who is carrying this mission, as the one who is setting the direction, I'm saying work-life balance. I'm doing it for everybody else. If I am not doing it myself, I am not leading by example, and I am accidentally eroding, and it changes what other people will think. So going back to holding up that mirror to me, holding up that mirror to the business, really, I might have a lot to say about what's out, but what do I actually really have to say about me? And what I'm doing here and doing the same for the business? I can tell everybody how everybody else is doing their business, but what's going on in my business? And am I walking my talk? And are for lack of a better term right now, judgments and criticisms that it's easy to give other people, are they actually really present here? And are they a little clue?
Oh, yeah. for sure, right? Like it's always hard to reflect back on ourselves. Christy's heard me say this a billion times over the past decade of knowing her, probably, but one of my favorite phrases that to apply to business is the cobbler's children have no shoes. Yes. Right? And because I think that the three of us specifically, we spend all day helping other people grow their businesses, but it's a different thing to turn around and be mindful of yourself and your own energy level and your own wellness, and then taking your own medicine, right? Like being sure that you're applying that back on yourself. And I think that,
Yeah.
in knowing you guys now for a while, like I think we're all getting better at that. I'd like to say right now, I want to pat ourselves on the back that we're all getting better at taking our own medicine, hopefully over time here. So
Yes. Well, and it's all about
Absolutely. I mean,
boundaries, right?
it's a process.
It
Yeah.
is. It's boundaries.
And
We
it's
have to
having an
feel them.
accountability. I mean, I would look for a consultant who has a consultant, a coach who has a coach, right? Like,
Yeah.
if it's true that you can't see your whole business by yourself, if it's true that holding up the mirror by yourself is not sufficient, then the same has to hold true for me. And if I'm not operating in a system that gives me those checks and balances, I can't be of highest and best service to you either.
Everybody
So,
needs an accountability. That's the game.
accountability. I like that.
It's a
I
great
like
word.
it.
I love saying
I can't say it, but I like it.
accountability. Which is why, like, so Christy and I have been meeting, weekly for a long time, and a lot of that is just to check in, right? Sometimes it's like, what did you do this week? Great. What did you do this week? Right. Like, and kind of trading those back and forth. And Christy's definitely one of my accountabilities. So for sure on that list. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's what we're talking about. So, what now when we can't work any harder? This is It's Your Business, brought to you by the Bold Business Podcast. And Christy, quick, who are you and what do you do?
Christy Maxfield, Purpose First Advisors. We help build, grow, and exit business on purpose.
Q, who are you and what do you do?
Quentin Ortega, QCO Consulting, helping companies break through the barriers that are holding them back from growing.
And I'm Jess Duell, host of the Bold Business Podcast, founder and managing director. Yeah, that's right. Of Red Direction, where we look at all the rules there are and we break them together to grow. Okay, so as we're working with all of these things, and as we are taking that short break, right? We just did a quick reset. Hey, don't forget you're here. This is why we're here. I love the conversation we were just having. We've talked about the importance of a growth strategy, slowing down to speed up. We've talked about the tools, holding up the mirror and having somebody else to help hold up mirrors for us so we can see as many pictures as possible. And now we've got to talk about the true north. We've got to talk about what do we check in on every day to have an understanding of what is actually happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that so a lot of times when I start working with clients, we've talked a lot here about tools and processes, and everybody knows like time management, and I should, I got to live in my calendar, and I have to use a CRM, and I have to like, because everyone knows and talks about that, I feel like by the time someone talks to one of us, a lot of times they're like, oh no, I have those tools. And I'm like, great. I see that you have paid for the subscription, right? Like that's often the case. Like they're like, no, I'm paying monthly for HubSpot. So guaranteed I have a CRM. And I'm like, great, but like, does anyone use it? And they're like, oh no, along the way. And so I think that what I often try to start helping people see is kind of finding what I call their true north or their gold standard for their task prioritization, for their day, for what's driving them, right? And I think that kind of revolves around, and not only for themselves, but for their team, right? So I see this all the time where if you have a CRM and you have, let's say a ticketing system like Jira, and you have Slack, and you have email, and you have all these things. And so when you sit down as a business leader to grow your company, to try to focus on and remember these high level strategies that Jess was talking about and everything, and you pile all these tools on that Christy was talking about, it gets lost, right? Somebody sends you an email and you click on the link in the email, and that email takes you to, here and there. And then before you know it, you're in Wikipedia, like researching something that's not even related to business. We've all done it, right? Like we've all
done it.
Later, you're like, what was this? Hold on. And I need, and that was like a valuable 5 minutes of your day, when it comes to time management. So I think that what I work with people on is saying like, okay, what's the thing that works with how you work, right? Like, so for me, I tell people I live by my calendar, right? If it's on my calendar, it's going to happen, right? Like that's number one. Probably after that is my email inbox. So like my email inbox is somewhat of a to-do list for me, right? Like, so I go through, and if you send me an email, I'll get to it. It might, as we just discussed a little bit ago, it might take me a while. I won't get to it in 24 hours, but I will get to it. And then after that is like Slack and, these other tools that start to flow in. And I think that knowing what your gold standard is, mine being my calendar, is good because then I check my calendar first, always. I sit on my computer. The first thing I do is I look at my calendar. My team around me, if you have a team, they also know that, right? So they know like if they need my attention, if they need to know what I'm doing, or if they need to know what I'm focusing on, or where I am, where I'm located, those sort of things, they know that they can check my calendar and it will be the true north. It'll be the gold standard of what Q is working on, what Quinn's working on for that day. And so I think knowing that for yourself and then also sharing that with your team can be super impactful and help you to honestly just to not get lost in the noise, right? Because we all are being pulled in a billion different directions all the time. The other example, the analogy I give to people is like if you're putting up all these systems, all these tools, it's like putting up walls in the foundation of a building, right? Like you're building walls here and there. But if nobody came in and said, this is the point we're going to start measuring from, that true north point, like the walls start to fall down because they're not attached to each other, right? You can put up a CRM over here, you can put up your email over here. But if no one is said like, but here is the corner that we all measure from, then it's going to be a mess, right? So finding that true north and then sharing that with other people, I think is a really critical piece of optimizing and stopping, to work smarter, not harder, right? And kind of the goal here of this conversation. So what's your true north? That's what I'll ask you too while we're here, right? Like, what is your gold standard that you and others know that you look at, right? Like, so that they can kind of set that expectation for you.
It's my calendar. Very much so.
What?
And I actually
You
schedule. Well, I also schedule time to do the work.
Oh,
right?
yes, that's true. That's true.
So one of the reasons I very reluctantly use like a Calendly link in some situations is because I don't want you just popping on my calendar. I don't want to have a random like, I thought I had a half hour here and now it's full. And I also know which things I can move and which things I really can't move. Like that's not a meeting with another human being, but it is a meeting with myself to get this thing done, to have the meeting with a human being. I find that people often say, well, I'm not really busy. I guess if you actually need to do something, it is time bound. It has a deliverable. It requires you to be prepared. Preparation is pretty much the whole game, not just part of the game. Showing up prepared takes a lot of stress out of things. So if you're not creating space in your calendar, if you're not reverse engineering where you want to be in 90 days and figuring out, well, if that's true, then I better make sure that I post these posts, send this newsletter, schedule these meetings, follow up on these proposals. And if I haven't built time into it, I can definitely fill the time. But I'm going to be running around feeling really stressed out and unprepared. So I like to have more control over who gets on and when, not because I'm trying to be a snob, but because I acknowledge that it actually takes time to do the work, to be prepared to show up for the people who are on my calendar, who need me to show up well. I mean, one of my daily prayers is help me to be of service, help me to show up with compassion, help me to show up with enthusiasm, because I don't always feel like it, right? I mean, I genuinely love talking about people's businesses, what they are, how they work, how we can make them better, what opportunities lie ahead. And I'm human. So some days I'm just like, oh God, okay. Yeah. And that is my, how can I structure my day, use the tools at my disposal, use my own North Star and my strategic goals to ensure that when I'm showing up at my best.
I love it. Pro tip.
Between 9 and 3.
Between 10 and 3 for Christy. But pro tip also, blocking out that time for the self-care, the like mental time, the meditation, whatever it is, to make yourself better, right? You can't help others if you're dealing with your own stuff, right? Like you have to get yourself right before you can help others with their stuff. And I think that I use my calendar for that as well, right? When I'm just like, I just need like an hour here to like, I don't know, sit and think, whatever it is, right? I think that's fine and great use.
Yeah. And pro tip number 2, when you use a link like that, decide when you want to be interruptible. I'm only interruptible for people to appear on my calendar 3 afternoons a week because that's not when I can do any deep work. That's when I'm going to be doing other tasks. And you have to get on my calendar 24 hours in advance. By the end of my workday, I want to know what's happening tomorrow. And I've done that through my scheduling links. So in the events where I don't want to go back and forth 10 million times, I'm just like, well, there it is. And I know what those days are. And there's a little behind the scenes color code so that I remember, don't plan a client meeting here. Or when I do, I'm taking away from this opportunity. Or, oh, this would be a great thing. I have to work on this and it's okay that I get interrupted here. And that's really, I think, what mine is. If you were talking about a true north for me, is what are the things that everything I do is going to result in like 10,000 other to-dos. And that is hands down what I do, because I act to plan. I will take action. I need to see how it's going to work out. I need to understand what that initial result is. And then I can go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, great, and go. But it's the result of a lot of things. And until I said, oh, I don't have to do all of the stuff that I'm generating. Oh, all the stuff that's being generated, nobody has to do, because this is just silly work where, I actually used to lead by spaghetti on the wall. And if it stuck, we'd keep doing it. And if it fell down, we'd just keep throwing spaghetti at the wall. And that was something as a man. There's a lot of them. This is one I'll share today. I thought it was great because it promotes innovation and creativity. What I didn't realize at the time is related to our company's growth strategy. When that was the case, everybody was fatigued more because they were always on guard for whatever the new idea was that was coming their way. And it was always coming from me. And so I inadvertently got things out of balance, and we were very creative, but we were not doing the right work. And it comes back down to those two things. And what is that check and what is that balance? Thankfully, that was a long time ago. Thankfully, unthankfully, I still go, oops, I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall. I got to stop that. And my team actually knows that too. We'll be in staff meetings and somebody was like, okay, that was 3 ideas right now. I'm like, oops, spaghetti on the wall. Okay, got to pause. What does this actually mean? And there's nothing there. By the way, some of us are just that way. So if we have to act and we have to plan, then you got to clear the plate so we know what's left, right? Like, I'm going to make cookies, but do I have everything to make cookies? I don't know. I'm going to pull everything out of my pantry and see. I think I can make cookies with all of this stuff. Well, we got to put the rest of the stuff back in the pantry, or if it's expired, put it in the bin, or whatever else we got to do with it so that we can just make the cookies. However we go about it, there is no wrong way. And that is actually one of the things that I think we forget about. We think tools give us a clear path. We think somebody else's success in following those steps give us a clear path. And really, all it does is it can hold us back because we're prioritizing to somebody else's strengths, not our own. We're prioritizing to somebody else's capacity in their company, in their organization, in their reach, where they're at in their world. Are they 10 years in? Are they 25 years in? Are they 2 years in? And when we compare ourselves apples to apples, we accidentally get off track. And so that's actually something. Acting to plan is awesome. I'm all about that. Get rid of the extras. And then day to day, I have just 3 things because I know there's stuff is going to come up. People are going to want my time. I want to be accessible. And sometimes those 3 things might be 3 personal wellness, personal care, time out, self-care things. And the whole rest of the day is interrupted by everybody else. And that's okay. And so there's definitely, I have a cycle that I would say, not a daily thing, but more of it's probably a 6-week cycle that I'm like, ooh, I know about this time I'm going to be really creative, or I have space to do that kind of thing in my calendar. And I will shape that and be okay with, I might not eat my vegetables every day, but as long as I'm eating the rainbow once a week, I think I might be doing okay. And there's something to be said for just owning that it's all good.
Yeah, I love that.
It's all good. So 3 things, lots of stuff. I discard and say no every day. And that has been a challenge because I like to be of service, because I like to be able to show up for people.
It's hard.
And I don't think I'm a people pleaser. I used to think that, but I don't think I'm that. I just like to say yes. And I think I like to be helpful, but saying no actually makes me more helpful. And saying no actually has moved mountains that much more.
Yeah. And
I
actually,
love
if you're helping somebody who hasn't asked for help, it's a disservice to them and
Ugh.
you.
Yes.
So I also find leaders who say, I don't want to ask so-and-so to do this because they already have too much on their plate. And 9 times out of 10, the person perceives it as, you don't trust me, you're working around me, you have some other thought going on in your head about me that's not good, because we never think that other people think good things about us. and your attempt to protect this person actually backfires, and you've put more on your own plate than you needed to. Right. And what I hear under all of them, whether you're starting with, your growth strategy, choosing a tool, using a tool, making one of those tools your go-to, is you have to make choices. And there is a perception that if I don't make choices, I can play the field. And then when one of those things becomes more, I can jump on it and do it, and I won't be locked in. In fact, making no choice is a choice. And you're choosing not to focus your energy. You're choosing not to make strategic decisions. You're choosing to chase after all the things. You're choosing to work hard. And there's actually nothing that says that when you make a choice, you can't change your mind and choose something else, which is at the heart of Jess's act to plan. Make the choice.
Yeah.
You can't go to the movies and go ice skating. Choose one. You walk into the movie and it doesn't, it's not rocking your world. You can leave and go ice skating.
You can also send the food back.
Well, you can, but that's
Yeah,
I was with somebody once. We must have gone through 5 rounds of eggs, and I was like,
okay,
well, I'm ready to go.
everything.
I don't know how anybody else feels, but you can make a different choice, right? It's not forever and ever and amen. There are very few.
Making decisions, right? Like being a business leader is making decisions. That's the thing. That's what everyone's looking for you to do, is to make those choices and to make them confidently, even if you're not sure about it, so that they
Nothing
feel
wrong with that.
Yeah.
And,
so they feel the passion.
Well, and so I'm thinking about I've had a lot of takeaways in our conversation today. I want to know from each of you what was okay. So I guess before we do that, let's just recap. We showed up because we can't always work harder. And what could we do about that? And that's the conversation we've been having today. And we talked about 3 areas with which our listeners and our watchers can start thinking about it. They can think about how well do I know my growth strategy, and am I able to prioritize work for that? They can look at the tools that they're using and say, are these the tools that actually help me lighten the workload and get the necessary work done? And it's how are we using those tools, and are they actually being effective for us? And because we're using them every day, because they help us be productive every day, because they give us the pulse of what's going on in our business every day. And those are the 3 areas that we really talked about. And we went deep on a lot, and we didn't necessarily give how-tos, because this isn't a how-to conversation. This is a conversation of the how-to is, what question are you going to ask yourself? So we're going to help you out by saying, well, here's what our biggest takeaway is. Here's what our biggest takeaway is from this conversation of people who do this every day, not only growing our own businesses, but working with other companies and business owners to grow their businesses. What was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I can go first. I think that, Jess, I enjoyed the reminder, I think, from you. It's a good reminder for me constantly to always zoom out further, if that makes sense, right? I feel like in this chaos of using these tools, of using a True North tool, right? Finding your one tool that you're relying on, we as humans still often default to this day by day feeling, right? Like what do I have to do today? And then you put the blinders on and you focus on that day, right? And I think as somebody who's trying to grow your business, as somebody who's trying to do that, you have to remember, you have to sit and take time and remind yourself to zoom out and see that. And I think that even for myself, it's a good reminder just to hear that over and over, right? Because I think that even you can hear it over and over, but again, as humans, I feel like we default back to focusing on just what's in front of us all the time. That's just what we do. It's in our nature.
For sure. I don't know if we explicitly said it, but the idea of there's a difference between knowing that something can be done or how to do it and doing it. And a lot of times I think people resist working with coaches or consultants because they're like, well, they're not going to teach me anything new, and they're just going to tell me what I know already. But there's a difference. If you're struggling in the space of knowing, but having trouble doing, or feeling like that doing is way harder than it needs to be, that you're doing the hard work and you're not seeing the results, and you're tired and angry, right? and disappointed and frustrated and all the other things.
Yeah.
That's to me a prime signal of you need to be working with somebody who can help you reevaluate, take the long view, and then focus in on where you want to be and get rid of some of the superfluous stuff. I've had clients where I've said, please don't read another book or listen to another podcast. Right? Like you are not, that whatever's going on is not from lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
These things are actually creating way more distractions and way more turmoil for you than they are giving you good things to act on. Quentin and I have talked about this a lot. Like, everybody reads the book and thinks they can do the book, but 99% of people don't do whatever that book said they could do. And that's actually why, like, if you're a fan of Traction, you can go out and hire an EOS implementer, because Gino Wickman realized the secret sauce was in actually helping you do the thing he wrote the book about. Because it looks a lot easier on paper than it really is. And, you know, there's real value. I also go back, Quentin, to, you know, often to sports, but like I watched the documentary Quarterback, and I know nothing about football, but what I know now is I don't need one coach. I need 5 coaches to help me do very specific things to help me capitalize on my strengths and mitigate my weaknesses, to strategize, to develop a plan, not just on how to play the game, but how to play the game against this particular opponent. I mean, I was just fascinated. And I was like, how can you watch this and not see the value in working with anybody in any area of your life, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, business, personal, to help you get that next level? Because quite frankly, it works.
It's proven.
It
been done.
works.
Yeah.
No quarterback's like, hey, I've been throwing the ball for good my whole life. I'm good. I know all there is to know. And my muscles, they be good too. And
I don't know.
you
Some
know,
of them
like,
probably say that, but you know,
well, they're not winning Super Bowls. They're not Mahomes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I think my biggest takeaway was this concept that all of us talked about it in our own ways, but it was how to say no.
Say no.
How to say no to what is not right now. And I think that that's a huge piece. That's just a boundary. It's so what are we doing? So those questions that are now coming up for me that I'm going to think about as I'm reflecting on our conversation and doing some of our post work and all of that is, well, so how else can I say no? I can use a calendar. I can use a tool. I can actually continue, you know, I mean, some people are going to listen to what I said earlier and be like, that's really inefficient. Well, you know what? It's actually the quickest way for me to get to the real work, because I don't have to schedule 10 things, because 10 things to me is exhausting. But one thing that I throw away 75% of is great. But in the end, right, what is this? It's a boundary. It's what are we saying no to so we can say yes to more of what's right? Because when we know what's necessary and we make the space to do as much of that necessary work as possible, that's really where all of the magic happens. It's where all of the empowerment of our teams comes in. The ability to communicate clearly and simply that vision, the ability to show up every day, regardless of what we're facing, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the exciting, and be okay knowing I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this. I don't know what's going to go on. I know people are looking to me, and that's okay. So that was my biggest takeaway from today.
I love it.
I'm telling you, I don't really want this conversation to end.
I
And
know.
so I
we
really,
could keep going. We could go.
I know.
We could go through all of Christy's part of her day. We have till 3:00. We could just keep going.
Yeah.
Because then after that, I'm just going to curl up and take a nap.
And then she just
Yeah.
signs off. I imagine she would just leave the call.
Peace
That's
out.
right. Peace out.
I'm showing my age more and more every day, and I love it.
I know. And that's the way of it. And so
I don't
everybody
know what a Riz is or if I have it, but you know, there's just too many terms to keep up with these days.
And there you have it. This is It's Your Business, hosted by the Bold Business Podcast. And I'm Jess Duell, your host.
Christy Maxfield.
Quentin Ortega.
We will see you next time.